Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining our Friday weekly Lunch and Learn. Every Friday at noon, Sierra Club Iowa chapter goes live to give you important updates, and we are in the middle of the legislative session. So we've got two things happening that we want to tell you about up at the Capitol. We're going to talk about some of our black bear legislation and where that bill is at, and then we also have some updates on the carbon pipeline stuff. So we're going to kick it off with black bears, and Brianna, one of our staff people and lobbyists, is going to tell us about that bill and what you can do. So take it away, Brianna.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jess. So let's get us started here. And my slides are up. Perfect. Okay. So hi everybody. I'm going to be talking about HF 2099, which helps protect black bears. Oh, there we go. All right. And so what does this bill do really? So it designates black bears as a fur-bearing animal under Iowa law. And so what that really means is that they're clearly placed under the authority of the Department of Natural Resources and the Natural Resource Commission. So this bill gives the state clear responsibility to manage and protect the black bear using science-based wildlife management. And without this designation, black bears are left in kind of a gray area where they are not clearly protected and are way more vulnerable to unregulated or illegal killings. And so while the term fur-bearing animal is often kind of brings to mind hunting, it's important to be clear that this designation does not create a hunting season. A hunting season would only be considered if and when Iowa black bear populations grow and are shown to be stable. So until then, this designation actually provides protection, not harm, by putting black bears under the DNR's authority and establishing penalties for illegal taking and ensuring decisions are guided by science rather than speculation. So the bill also strengthens accountability. So anyone who unlawfully takes a black bear would face significant penalties, including a $25,000 fine. And that just helps create that deterrent against poaching and sends a message that these animals really do matter and are important to our ecosystem. So again, we support HF 2099 because black bears are still very rare in Iowa and are only beginning to return. So this bill helps to ensure that as they do, we manage that return responsibly with clear rules, strong protections, and a focus on coexistence rather than conflict. So this is about proactive conservation. It gives the DNR the tools they need before problems arise instead of reacting after harm has already been done. So, what can you do to help support this bill? We got three action items. First, send in public comments by February 4th. So that's coming up really quick this next week. And I'll drop that link. You can see it on the slide in the chat so you guys have an easy path to the comment section. Second, they will also be holding a subcommittee meeting on HF 2099 on February 4th at noon as well in the Iowa Capitol in room 304. So if you are free and available, come on down to that. And then third, email the three subcommittee members to let them know that you are in support of this bill, that this is helps protect black bears. And the three committee members are Sam, I'm gonna butcher all these names, so I apologize. Wengren, he is the chair, Austin Baith, and Jennifer Smith, and I'll put their emails in the chat too for easy finding as well. And so yeah, three action items to help support the black bear. And if you have any questions on that, throw them in the chat. Otherwise, I will hand it back to Jess to talk about the pipeline.
Awesome. Thank you, Brianna. And you got all three names right. So good job. Um, thank you for your hard work on that bill. And we actually are going to be up at the Capitol on that day too. So maybe we can go to both things together. So yeah, come to the Capitol on February 4th. So I'm going to switch topics and talk about the carbon pipelines because it's happening so fast and so much is going on. Um, so just to kind of ground ourselves in where we're at, there's two main bills. And the first one, this is the bill that we like, House File 2104. And this bill is clearly a priority. It was the first bill to pass out of either chamber this legislative session, and it's the only bill that has passed out of either chamber this session. So is clearly a priority. And the House is with us, and they're determined to make sure that we pass House File 2104. And then we have the Senate, and specifically Senate leadership. They're determined to not pass our bill and instead pass their distraction bill, which is Senate File 2067, also known as the corridor bill, if you're paying attention in the news. So what do each of these bills do? First one, House File 2104, the one that we support, is a simple, clean bill. It is exactly what was asked of us last session after Governor Reynolds vetoed the bill. They wanted something with no unintended consequences that didn't affect lots of different kinds of projects and was clean. So we have a simple, clean bill. It's very similar to South Dakota's law that they passed last session, removing the threat of eminent domain for carbon pipelines. And our bill does just that, and simply that. It removes the threat of eminent domain for carbon pipelines, but it does not ban carbon pipelines. It just has to be on consenting landowners' land. So simply gives Iowans the right to say yes or no. And you can see here's our bill. It's one sentence long. The first two lines just tell you where the language goes in Iowa code. Line 3 is our new subsection. Notwithstanding any other provision of law, a person shall not exercise the power of eminent domain to acquire right of way for, construct, or operate a pipeline for the primary purpose of transporting carbon oxide. So simple, clean, makes sense, easy to understand. The last two parts are just when is it effective and who does it apply to. So very clean bill. And it does exactly what we've been asking for the last 5 years. So now we move over to the Senate leadership proposal, the false bill that's just a distraction. This bill number is Senate File 2067. We are not supporting this bill. Senator Klemesh proposed this bill as a way to decrease the use of eminent domain, or even goes as far to saying, all but eliminate the need for eminent domain. What it does is it widens the corridor to 10 miles, so 5 miles on either side of the pipeline route, which actually increases the number of people who are subject to eminent domain. The purpose of that corridor, that area around the pipeline route, is to notify people that there's a pipeline being proposed in the area. And as that pipeline figures out a route, you are within the corridor and could be subject to eminent domain if the pipeline ends up on your land. So it's important. This corridor, you can see this is an example of Summit's actual filings. The purple line is where Summit's proposed route is, where their preferred route is. And this gray area on the outside of the line is the corridor. So throughout the process, Summit can wiggle around and find a route within that corridor. Now, Summit picked this corridor. That's why you'll notice areas like this are bigger than areas like this. Summit picked its own corridor. And there currently already is a process to change that corridor. So Summit really is struggling to get through here. They can file an amendment request with the Iowa Utilities Commission and ask for a wider corridor. They would likely be required to notify those newly impacted people and probably have to hold an informational meeting. Both of those things aren't burdensome, they're fair. And so Klemesh's proposal is not good. It's just a distraction. It doesn't actually address the issue of property rights and someone having the ability to say no. In his bill, the company can request eminent domain on unwilling landowners after 6 months of having their project open and submitting the easement offers to the landowners. So clearly, eminent domain is still on the table, which creates unfair negotiations because a company that has eminent domain as an option is going to be less likely to negotiate with a landowner. It's also really burdensome and it's confusing. There's so many deadlines in there. Is once you receive this, you have 15 days to respond to that. You have 7 days to do this. And that's just complicated. The current process works and people are notified. And if Summit wants to change or any pipeline company wants to change their corridor, they can do it and people are still notifying. Klemesh's bill also allows the Iowa Utilities Commission to determine what a good easement is. So the company would submit their easement to the Iowa Utilities Commission and the IUC would, say, yep, this looks good, which could then be used later in the justification of eminent domain because it's considered a fair easement. So it allows the Iowa Utilities Commission to start making decisions on what good easements are. And one of the things that really alarms us is at the beginning of Klemesh's bill is a big section that changes the legislative intent of the bill and of the Iowa Utilities Commission. And the way it's written, it's really in favor of companies and not in favor of landowners and Iowans and protections of their rights. So you can see we are not in favor of this proposal. We prefer our simple, clean bill, House File 2104. Now, a lot has happened in the last 3 weeks of the legislative session. You can clearly tell this issue is a priority. On the first day of session, January 12th, House File 2104 was introduced. On the second day, it passed out of subcommittee 2-1. On the third day, it passed out of the House Judiciary Committee 19-2. And then the next week, it passed out of the full House 64-28. So then our bill that we like, House File 2104, went over to the Senate this week on Tuesday. And it passed out of subcommittee 2-1. However, Senator Klemesh, who headed the subcommittee, recommended an amendment and didn't tell us what that amendment was. They held the subcommittee with very little notice at 8 a.m. in a tiny room. So their intent was to try to slip things past people and limit public participation. The next day, they took our bill, House File 2104, and passed it out of the Senate Commerce Committee, and it passed 13-5. And the committee also recommended an amendment, which we're not in favor of because we know that Klemesh probably wants his bill, not our bill. And then just yesterday, Senator Klemesh decided to hold a subcommittee on his own bill, Senate File 2067, which also passed out of subcommittee 2-1. So right now, both of those bills are looking like they're going to be the same thing. Senator Klemesh's bill is trying to outmaneuver and hijack this process and make it unfair by switching out his bill or switching out our bill for his. So where do we stand right now? So House File 2104, the bill we like, is ready for the Senate debate calendar. So at any point in time, it can come up for debate. There are currently 2 amendments filed to the bill. Both of those amendments are basically Senate File 2067, and those will be voted on during debate whenever it comes up on the debate for the Senate floor. So we need to get as many people to vote no on those 2 amendments so that we can keep House File 2104 as written and passed by the House. The other bill, Klemesh's bill, Senate File 2067, is now ready for a Commerce Committee vote, which we kind of predict could happen as early as Wednesday next week. So another reason to come to the Capitol on Wednesday. So we need all hands on deck. We need you to take action. We need people to contact their senators and ask them to support House File 2104. It's the bill that protects property rights. And we want it passed as passed by the House with no amendments. We want them to vote no on any of Senator Klemesh's amendments. Second step is come to the Capitol on Wednesday 2-4. Not only can you lobby with us on the carbon pipelines, but you can also lobby with us on the Black Bear bill. So great chance to come up and help out at the Capitol. And we're going to start at 10 a.m. So if you come at 10, you can lobby on the pipeline a little bit and then head over to the Black Bear meeting. We're going to meet in the cafeteria. And the other thing you can do is attend the legislative forums this weekend. On the weekends, legislators have meetings in their home districts to make it easy for people to show up and weigh in. And we need people to go and say support House File 2104 and pass it without any amendments. Here's a list of some of the forums that we found this weekend. If you know of any others, please put those in the chat so we can add them to the list. But we have some in Glenwood, Fort Dodge, Greene, Spencer, Marion, Atlantic, Urbandale, New Hampton, and Okoboji. So please attend the one nearest you and make sure you weigh in on both bills, the carbon pipeline bills and the Black Bear bills. So if you have any questions or any thoughts, please put those in the chat and we will get to them later today. And we thank you for watching our Friday weekly Lunch and Learns. We hope to see you next Wednesday and hope you have a great weekend. So thank you and we'll talk to you later. Bye.